The champagne flutes were still trembling on the marble counter when I read the message again. Slowly this time, as if maybe my eyes had betrayed me. Mom. We won't be coming tonight, honey. It's just too far. You understand. Too far? I stared out across the open living space of my new home. A sprawling glass and ocean fantasy perched high above the Malibu coastline. The waves below looked like liquid silver under the dusklight. The air scented with salt and magnolia from the garden. Everything shimmered, expensive, perfect. But my hands were shaking. Too far. They lived 40 minutes away. I could almost hear my father's voice layered beneath my mother's text. His clipped tone, the kind he used whenever I'd made a choice he didn't approve of. My career. My move. My relationship. My money. They never said the words outright, but the silence between us always carried it. You don't deserve this life. I tried calling her anyway. Straight to voicemail. My reflection looked back at me in the sliding glass doors. Long waves of chestnut hair falling over a silk dress that suddenly felt like a costume. I'd spent hours preparing for this night. The grand housewarming. The celebration of a lifetime of work, sweat, and sacrifice. And yet nothing. Just a text. The room blurred for a moment. My heart clenched, but I forced a smile when I heard the doorbell chime. Guests are arriving, my assistant Mila called softly. She was already lighting the candles, setting the music to low jazz. Are you okay, Ms. Rowan? I nodded automatically, wiping my palms on the sides of my dress. Fine. Perfect. Let's welcome them. But inside something cracked. Because even as I stepped toward the grand foyer, the one lined with polished travertine and a chandelier I'd imported from Florence, all I could think was how they were supposed to be the first ones to arrive. Mom always brought flowers. Dad always complained about parking. Now they weren't coming at all. And I didn't understand why that hurt so much, because I should have been used to it by now. By 8 o'clock, the villa was alive. Soft laughter, clinking glasses, the rustle of dresses, and the gleam of diamonds under golden light. Every face was familiar: investors, clients, friends from college, neighbors who suddenly remembered my name once the Forbes article came out. $6 million. That's what the ocean villa was worth. My name on the deed, my signature on every piece of art hanging on the walls. I'd built everything from nothing: my tech startup, the real estate empire. The quiet luxury that made me the woman my parents barely recognized anymore. I was supposed to feel powerful tonight. But the hollow pit in my chest only deepened. Lila! A familiar voice called out. I turned and froze. It was Noah, standing there in his dark navy suit, looking exactly as he did the last time I'd seen him. Devastatingly composed, unbearably familiar. My ex-fiancé. He wasn't supposed to be here. Hey! He said softly, stepping closer. His smile was careful, rehearsed. Congratulations on the house. It's incredible. My throat tightened. Who invited you? Mila. He looked apologetic. She said it would be good to make peace. Of course she did. Mila had no idea about the way Noah and I ended, the shattered engagement, the weeks of silence, the discovery that nearly broke me. I didn't think you'd come, I said, my voice brittle. He laughed once low. I wasn't sure either. But I wanted to see how you're doing. How I'm doing. He had no idea. He looked around the villa, his eyes lingering on the artwork, the view. You really outdid yourself, Lila. There was something faintly mocking in his tone, but I let it slide. Yeah, I said. I did. He raised his glass. Then here's to new beginnings. Our eyes met for a beat too long. My chest constricted, memories flooding back. The night I found out he'd been sleeping with my business partner. The betrayal that nearly made me sell everything and disappear. Instead, I'd built higher walls. Excuse me, I whispered, stepping away before I drowned in the sight of him. I walked toward the terrace, gripping the glass railing until my knuckles whitened. The Pacific stretched endlessly before me, a dark, breathing thing. I could almost hear my mother's disapproval whispering in the back of my mind. And then from inside, laughter. Familiar one. I turned sharply. Noah was inside again, talking to someone. Someone whose voice sent an electric jolt down my spine. Mila. She was leaning close, her hand resting lightly on his arm, laughing like she'd known him all her life. My heart stuttered once. No, not again. The world seemed to tilt slightly. The music, the chatter, the lights. All of it felt muffled, distant, unreal. I watched them from the terrace, the way his hand brushed her back as she walked past him, the tiny, almost imperceptible smile that passed between them. Maybe it meant nothing. Maybe it was harmless. But I'd learned the hard way that harmless is just another word for warning sign. I stayed there, half hidden by the reflection in the glass, watching as they moved together through the crowd. My heart pounded, my palms slick. I felt the old panic rise, the one I thought I'd buried when I ended things with Noah. It wasn't the sight of them talking that unsettled me. It was how familiar it felt. The pattern. Maybe I was just imagining it. Maybe it was the wine. Or maybe it was happening again. That night, after everyone had gone and the house was finally quiet, I stood barefoot in the living room surrounded by empty glasses and half-melted candles. The sea breeze slid through the open doors, cool and relentless. Mila had gone home hours ago. Or so I thought. Until I heard a voice. Soft. Male. From the guest wing. My pulse went ice cold. I crept forward, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. Each step was soundless on the marble. The hallway stretched ahead, dimly lit by recessed floor lights. I followed the faint hum of conversation until I reached the guest suite door, slightly ajar. Through the sliver of light I saw movement. Noah's jacket, Mila's laugh, and then her whisper. Don't worry, she won't suspect anything. She trusts me. The glass slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. The sound sliced through the air. Inside, silence. Then quick footsteps. Lila. Mila's voice, suddenly high-pitched, almost trembling. Oh my God, what are you doing here? I stood frozen, shards glittering around my feet, my pulse roaring in my head. What am I doing here? I whispered. This is my house. Noah stepped into view, shirt unbuttoned at the collar, his expression unreadable. And just like that, everything I'd built, everything I thought I'd learned came crashing down all over again. For a long hollow second no one spoke. Just the sound of the waves crashing outside and my pulse hammering in my ears. Mila's eyes darted between me and Noah, her lips parting as if to form an excuse, but nothing came. She looked small under the hallway light, still in the silky champagne dress I'd bought her for tonight's party. My assistant, my friend, the one person who had seen every moment of my rebuilding after Noah broke me. Lila, she stammered. It's not what it looks like. I laughed. The sound came out sharp and raw. God, can we please retire that phrase? It's exactly what it looks like. Noah tried to step forward, but I lifted a hand. Don't. He stopped instantly, reading something in my face. Something that said, if you touch me, I'll shatter you. I didn't mean for you to find out like this, he said finally, voice quiet, almost remorseful. Find out what exactly? I asked. That you're sleeping with my assistant? That you walked back into my life just to humiliate me again? Which part of this was supposed to go smoothly? He exhaled, dragging a hand down his jaw. It just happened. I let the words hang in the air for a beat, watching them rot between us. It just happened. My laugh this time was softer, sadder. You said the same thing when it was Elise. He flinched. The name hit like glass. Elise. My former business partner. The first betrayal. The one that made me close my heart and build walls out of marble and money. I should have known better than to let him into this house, into me again. Lila, Mila said quickly, stepping forward, her voice trembling. Please just listen. Don't. My tone sliced through her plea. You had every opportunity to tell me. You watched me invite you into my life again. Trusted you with everything and you still lied. Tears pooled in her eyes. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Then where exactly did you mean for it to go? I asked. Just a few drinks? Some late nights at the office? You think betrayal only starts when the clothes come off. She covered her face, shaking. I wanted to scream, to break something, but the anger felt too big to fit in my chest. I felt hollow. Like every ounce of pain I'd buried since the first time Noah betrayed me had risen to the surface at once, hot and electric and endless. I need you both out of my house, I whispered. Lila. Now. Mila sobbed quietly. Noah hesitated, looking like he wanted to explain, to apologize, to say something that would make this less ugly. But there was nothing left to say. He picked up his jacket and walked toward the door. Mila followed, shoulders shaking. The sound of their footsteps faded down the hall, Then the faint slam of the front door. Silence. I stood there for what felt like hours, staring at the shards of glass on the floor, the reflection of my own face fractured in them. It wasn't just betrayal. It was the way it kept finding me, no matter how much distance I put between myself and the past. When I finally moved, it was automatic. I swept the glass into a pile, rinsed the wine from the floor, and stood under the kitchen light until the numbness set in. My body moved, but my mind was somewhere else, back in the villa's foyer, staring at the empty space where my parents should have been. They'd refused to come, almost like they knew. A sudden chill rippled through me. I walked toward the window, staring out into the dark. My phone buzzed on the counter. Another text from Mom. Mom, we really hope tonight went well. I'll call you tomorrow. Get some rest, sweetheart. Sweetheart. It almost made me laugh. I stared at the message, at the perfection of its distance. Something about it felt wrong. Forced. Like it wasn't really her. My parents weren't affectionate people, but they weren't robotic either. They never called me sweetheart. I typed back before I could think. Me thanks. Everything went perfectly. A lie so smooth it almost made me sick. The next morning, I woke to the sound of gulls outside and a pounding headache. My phone was still on the counter, dead from the night before. When I plugged it in, dozens of notifications appeared. Texts, calls, missed alerts. But one message stood out. From Dad. Dad, we need to talk. Not over text. No greeting. No explanation. Just that. My stomach tightened. Maybe it was about last night. Maybe Mom had told him I seemed upset. Or maybe in their usual way, they'd sensed that something was falling apart before I could even admit it. I called him immediately. It rang twice. Then click. Lila, he said. His voice was steady, controlled. Too controlled. Hey, I said softly. I got your message. What's going on? There was a pause. I could hear him exhale. I think it's time you knew the truth about why we didn't come last night. My breath caught. Okay. It's not because we didn't want to, he said. It's because your mother didn't think she could face him. Face who? Another pause. Then quietly. Noah. The room tilted. What? I whispered. He cleared his throat, his voice tight. We saw him, Lila. 2 weeks ago. At a restaurant downtown. With a woman who wasn't you. Your mother wanted to tell you, but she thought it was just a business dinner. Then we found out from a friend that he was back in your life. She didn't want to cause drama, not after last time. I sank onto the couch, fingers gripping the edge. You saw him with Mila, didn't you? Silence. That was my answer. A laugh escaped me, thin, almost manic. You knew. You both knew. And you just didn't come because you couldn't stomach watching it play out again. Lila, please, my father said softly. We wanted to protect you. But you don't listen when you're in love. Love? I said bitterly. You think I still love him? He sighed. Then why did you let him in your house again? I had no answer. Because maybe some part of me did. Because heartbreak doesn't erase love. It just poisons it slowly until you can't tell the difference. My father's voice softened. You've worked too hard to let people like that ruin you again. You can forgive, but you can't keep opening the same wound. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. I know. Good. Then listen carefully, he said, lowering his voice. There's something else you need to know. Something your mother found out after that dinner. What is it? But before he could answer, the call dropped. I stared at the screen. No signal. Then a flicker. My Wi-Fi disconnected. Strange. When I went to check the router, the security system screen on the wall flickered too, static, then a frozen image of the entryway. Someone was standing there. Someone who looked like Mila. And she was holding a set of keys. The camera feed blinked once, then went dark. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd imagined it. That maybe it was a glitch or leftover footage from last night. But the timestamp at the bottom of the screen showed 9:42 a.m. Current. I froze, staring at the black monitor. The silence in the villa felt heavier than before, like the air itself had thickened. My phone buzzed in my hand, startling me. Unknown number. You should have listened to your parents. I dropped the phone. It clattered on the marble floor. My chest tightened, pulse spiking like lightning through my ribs. Who? I picked it up again, scrolling through the message. No name. No previous threat. Just that one sentence. I ran to the front door barefoot, adrenaline slicing through the hangover fog. The long hallway stretched before me. Sunlight spilling across the floors, seagulls crying faintly outside. I reached the door and pressed my eye to the small glass panel. Empty. The driveway shimmered under the California sun. No car. No movement. Just silence. But I knew what I'd seen on that screen. Mila. Or someone who looked exactly like her. I turned quickly, checking the security lock panel. The system showed manual override. Access granted 9:42 a.m. Someone had used a code. Only 2 people had that code, me and Mila. My heart pounded. I grabbed my phone, dialing her number with trembling hands. It rang once, twice, then clicked. Her voice came through, calm even. Hey Lila. Mila, I breathed. Where are you? A pause. At home. You're lying. Another pause, longer this time. No, I'm not. Then why are you in my house? I demanded. I saw you. On my security feed. She went silent. I could hear faint background noise, wind, seagulls. Sounded too familiar. Why are you here, Mila? I repeated, my voice breaking. Finally she spoke, softly like someone confessing a sin. Because I left something behind. What? My phone. I blinked. Your phone? Yes, she said. In the guest suite. I came early because I didn't want to see you. I didn't think you'd be awake yet. I pressed a hand to my forehead. The explanation was plausible, maybe even true, but her tone was wrong. Flat. Detached. Mila, what's really going on? She sighed. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me. There was a soft rustle on her end, like fabric brushing against a microphone. Then quietly. You think Noah betrayed you again. You think this is about him. But it's not. What are you talking about? This is about them, she said. My pulse jumped. Them who? Your parents. The line went dead. For a long minute I stood there, staring at the phone screen. Then instinct took over. I grabbed my car keys and headed for the garage. The drive to my parents' house felt longer than it ever had before. The Pacific shimmered on my right, blindingly bright, but I barely saw it. My mind spun with questions, each one heavier, darker. Them. What had she meant? When I pulled into their driveway, the first thing I noticed was that both cars were gone. The house looked eerily still. I rang the doorbell anyway. No answer. Then I saw the envelope, taped to the front door. My name written in my mother's handwriting. I tore it open, hands trembling. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Lila, if you're reading this, we've gone to the cabin. Don't come looking for us yet. There are things you don't understand. We'll explain soon. Mom. My stomach twisted. The cabin. The one in Big Sur. The place we hadn't visited in years. Not since before my father's heart attack. Things I didn't understand. I drove back home in silence, the wind roaring past the open windows, trying to piece together what any of it could mean. When I reached the villa again, it was late afternoon. The front door was ajar. My blood ran cold. I stepped inside slowly, every muscle tensed. The air smelled faintly of salt and perfume. Not mine. Mila's. Hello. No answer. I moved toward the living room, scanning for movement. Everything looked untouched, except for the coffee table. There, sitting neatly on top, was Mila's phone. And beside it, a flash drive. I stared at it for a long time before picking it up. There was a yellow sticky note attached. You'll find your answers here. My hand shook as I slid the flash drive into my laptop. The screen flickered once, then opened a video file. The footage was grainy but clear enough. My parents' living room. My mother sitting on the couch, pale and drawn. My father pacing behind her. Mila was there too, her expression blank, almost professional. And then my mother spoke. She deserves to know the truth, Richard. We can't hide it anymore. My father turned sharply. You want to destroy her life over something that happened 20 years ago? She'll find out, my mother said, voice cracking. She's too smart not to. I leaned closer, my breath catching. My father stopped pacing. Fine. Then you tell her that the man she thinks is her father isn't. The world seemed to fall away. I couldn't breathe. The man I'd called Dad for 33 years wasn't my father? The camera shook slightly as Mila's voice cut in. And Noah. My mother buried her face in her hands. He's her half-brother, I screamed. The sound tore out of me before I even realized it. My knees gave way, the laptop slipping from my hands. I hit the floor hard, my body trembling uncontrollably. Noah, my ex-fiancé, the man I almost married. Half-brother. The room spun violently. My stomach churned and I crawled to the bathroom just in time to throw up. The acid burned my throat, my tears blurring everything. How could they keep something like this from me? I stayed there for a long time, on the cold tile floor, shaking, gasping, the words echoing over and over in my head. Half-brother. When I finally pulled myself up, I staggered back to the laptop. The video was still playing. My father's voice filled the room again. You shouldn't have brought Noah into this, he said sharply. That was reckless. I had to, Mila replied. He was already suspicious. He wanted to tell her himself. So you used him? My mother whispered. Mila looked directly at the camera then. Her gaze cold, deliberate. I did what I had to. For her. For me. The video cut off. I sat there numb, staring at the dark screen. My mind couldn't process the layers of it. The betrayal, the manipulation, the horrifying truth underneath everything. Noah hadn't betrayed me again. He'd been part of something deeper. Something twisted. And Mila, she'd known all along. The sun had set completely by the time I managed to stand. My phone buzzed again, breaking the silence. Mila, come to the cabin. Tonight. Before they leave. I stared at the message. The cabin. My parents. Answers. Or maybe more lies. Either way, I was done being the one who didn't know. I grabbed my keys, my coat, and the flash drive, and walked out into the night, heart pounding, headlights cutting through the dark as I drove north along the coast toward whatever truth was waiting for me in Big Sur. The drive to Big Sur felt endless, each mile swallowed by fog and the rhythmic roar of the ocean against the cliffs. The highway twisted through dark pines and open stretches where the moonlight shimmered over the water like spilled silver. I barely noticed any of it. My hands clutched the steering wheel, knuckles white, the same words looping in my mind. He's her half-brother. He's her half-brother. My heart lurched every time I heard it again in my head, like a blade twisting inside me. My parents. Noah. Mila. All of them tangled in a web of secrets that stretched back decades, hiding something monstrous beneath the surface of my life. When I finally turned onto the dirt road that led to the cabin, the headlights caught the outline of a car parked ahead. My parents' SUV. The air was cold when I stepped out, scented with wet pine and salt. The cabin stood silent, windows dark except for a faint flicker of light deep inside. I pushed open the door. It creaked, the sound echoing through the stillness. Mom! My voice trembled. Dad! No answer. I took a few steps inside, my shoes crunching over old wooden planks. The air smelled like dust and firewood. A single candle burned on the kitchen table, next to a thick folder. And beside it, Mila. She was sitting there, still as a statue, her hair pulled back, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. She looked nothing like the girl who'd stood laughing in my living room 48 hours ago. Mila, I whispered. Where are they? Her gaze lifted slowly. Gone. What do you mean gone? They left. About an hour ago. Where? She shook her head. You don't need to find them. Not yet. I stepped closer, anger cutting through the fear. You don't get to decide that. You've been lying to me for months. You let me think. My voice cracked. You let me think Noah cheated again. Her eyes glistened. I had to keep you from him until you knew. Until I knew what? That the man I was engaged to is my brother. She flinched but didn't look away. Yes. My throat closed. You should have told me, I whispered. You should have told me before everything fell apart. She swallowed hard, her voice barely audible. I couldn't. Your parents made me promise. They were terrified the truth would destroy you. Destroy me. I laughed bitterly. Look around, Mila. It has. Her expression softened with pain. You don't understand. They were trying to protect you from what really happened. From why they hid it. I frowned, my pulse starting to race again. What do you mean? She slid the folder across the table toward me. Open it. My hands shook as I untied the string and unfolded the cover. Inside were old documents, birth certificates, hospital forms, newspaper clippings yellowed with age. The first page was my birth certificate. My mother's name, Eleanor Rowan. Father's name, blank. Beneath it, another document. A legal filing dated 3 months later. Paternity dispute. Confidential settlement. And below that, a photo. My mother, younger, standing beside a man I didn't recognize. Dark hair. Same eyes as mine. I looked up at Mila, my heart pounding. Who is he? His name was Daniel Quinn, she said quietly. He was your mother's colleague at the research firm. Married at the time. My chest went tight. Married to who? Mila's voice was almost a whisper. Noah's mother. I stumbled back, my knees weak. You're saying my mother had an affair? She nodded slowly. And when she got pregnant, both families made a deal. They decided to keep it secret. Daniel stayed with his wife. Your mother stayed with your father. They raised you as his. I pressed a hand to my mouth, the air leaving my lungs in one long soundless exhale. So I was the secret, I said hoarsely. Mila's eyes filled with tears. You were the price of silence. The words hit like a slap. And Noah? He didn't know either, she said softly. Not until last year. He found some letters his mother had hidden. He tried to reach out to your parents to confirm it before he told you. That's when your mother called me. You. I worked for your family before I worked for you, she said, her voice trembling. Your mother trusted me to keep watch, to protect you from the fallout. That's why I took the job at your company, Lila. To make sure you'd never find out the wrong way. My vision blurred. You betrayed me. Her lips quivered. I saved you. I laughed, the sound hollow, breaking. Saved me? You let me fall in love with my brother, Mila. Tears spilled down her face. You were already in love when I met you. I couldn't change the past. All I could do was stop it from destroying you once the truth surfaced. By lying to me? She stood abruptly, the candlelight flickering across her face. By keeping you alive, Lila. The words sliced through the air, cold and sharp. I froze. What are you talking about? Her voice dropped to a whisper. Your father, Richard. He wasn't just trying to protect you. He was trying to silence everyone who knew. Noah's mother. Daniel. They both died in a car accident 6 months apart. Your father made it look like coincidence. The world tilted. No, I whispered. That's not possible. She met my eyes steady. Your mother confessed. That's what's in the rest of the file. She's been living with it ever since. That's why she didn't want to see Noah again. That's why she couldn't face coming to your housewarming. The guilt was eating her alive. My knees gave out. I sat hard in the wooden chair, staring at the flickering candle. The shadows seemed to move across the walls like ghosts. My whole life, I said quietly. Every single thing I believed was a lie. Mila nodded. Yes. I looked up at her, my voice barely more than a breath. Where are they? She hesitated. They're leaving the country. They think you'll never forgive them. They're right. She closed her eyes. I told them you would. That you're stronger than they think. I stood slowly, my hands trembling, my body trembling. Rage and grief and horror blending into something wordless. I don't want to be strong, I said. I just want the truth. Mila nodded. Then take it. She pushed the folder toward me again. Everything's in there. Every document, every lie, every life they took apart to keep you safe. I stared at it for a long moment. The firelight danced across the edges of the pages. I could burn it right now. Pretend none of this existed. But the truth had already burned its way through me. I'm done being their secret, I said finally. I picked up the folder, tucked it under my arm, and turned toward the door. As I stepped into the cold night, I looked back once. Mila was still sitting there, her face calm now, tears drying on her cheeks. What will you do? She asked quietly. I met her eyes. I'll tell the world what they did. Her expression flickered, fear then pride. Then I guess my job is finally done. I left her there, candlelight flickering behind her as I walked into the dark. By the time I reached the ocean villa again, dawn was breaking. The sky glowed pink over the water, and the sea crashed below like thunder. I set the folder down on the table, opened my laptop and began to type. Every secret, every name, every crime. Tears blurred my vision as I wrote, but I didn't stop. Because for the first time in my life, the truth wasn't something I feared, it was something I owned. And when the first rays of sunlight touched the horizon, I hit send. To every major news outlet, every journalist I knew, every board member, every friend. By noon, my parents' names were trending across the country. By evening, they were fugitives. And me? I stood on my balcony, barefoot, the ocean roaring beneath me, the villa bathed in gold. My heart felt shattered, yes, but it was finally mine. Not shaped by their lies or Noah's shadow or Mila's silence. For the first time I could breathe. And as the wind tangled through my hair and the world below burned with the truth, I whispered to the sea. Too far, huh?